Hello and welcome to Lyric Hi-Fi on a September afternoon in 2022. Welcome to Brenton and Jamie who are doing the sound and picture for us as usual. Thanks guys. To get the housekeeping out of the way, please press the like and subscribe. Costs you nothing and it means we tell you when we're doing something new. If you've just watched a great video that we did about the Urika illicit amplifier, you can tell this is the same day because I'm wearing the same shirt. What we're doing today is Linn Sondek LP12. Now this is a very famous, one of the most ever famous turntables that has been the best in the world for nigh on 50 years. In fact, next year, 2023, is the 50th anniversary of the Linn Sondek. And people say, oh, I bought one in 1974 and it cost me £170. And why are they thousands now? Well, the same reason why your Mini cost you £400 and now it costs you 15,000. But also things have changed. The original Mini is not the same as a new one. The original Linn is not the same as a new one, even though they look the same. The Linn over the years has progressed. There have been improvements to every single part of the turntable. So I'm going to tell you today about the different parts of the turntable so you know a bit more in depth about it. And Linn have changed it now. Instead of having one Linn Sondek LP12, there are now actually 3 different levels. So they call these levels Majik, Selekt and Climax. And there's been 2 new products launched in the last few months, which are in the Selekt level turntable, which is this one here. But let's start over here with the Majik turntable. And this turntable, the eagle-eyed among you will go, Michael, that's not the switch off a Majik turntable. No, it's not. So ignore that switch. It's a different switch. But the Majik turntable is a very simple plug on-off, simple power supply. It is the same platter as all the rest. It is the same bearing as all the rest. It is the same top plate, this stainless steel part, and it is the same plinth. But all the other bits are different at each level. This bit, complete with a cartridge, is either £3,450 with a moving magnet cartridge or £3,650 with a moving coil cartridge. And both of those get you into the Majik level of LP12, but it's a proper Linn Sondek. So the next level of Selekt is the one we're going to talk most about, because you go from 3,500 to 10,500. How can that be, Michael? How can that be? Where does all that money go? Well, the bits that make the difference, most of them you can't see. But let me show you a little bit about how a Sondek works. See, this is all floating together. Well, this has a sub-chassis that's underneath that joins all of these together. And that sub-chassis can be different levels of stiffness. So the sub-chassis at Majik is different to this one. This one is called a core, and it's about £800. So if you bought the Majik turntable, because you think, oh, at the moment 3,450 is enough, then later you could buy a core, and people say, oh, will that make it sound better? Yes, Linn aren't stupid people. Everything they do makes it better. You spend £800 and it sounds better again. The other thing about this is a little box here sitting beside it. What's that? What's that? That is called a Lingo 4, and that is a power supply which also has a matching motor. So if I take off the platter, you see this beautifully machined inner platter that mates to this, and this is the motor on the belt drive, and this is the little board here is to do with the speed control. The Lingo manufactures its own 50 Hertz and amplifies it and feeds it to the motor so that you can have a really precise speed control. Now actually that was the previous Lingo, because this has gone a little bit further, because this now has changed to a DC motor. So it actually manufactures a very precise DC, and it also has a feedback system so that from the inside of the platter this device can measure what's going on and can correct if necessary. In real time, actually, once it is set up and calibrated, this will run at the same speed for a long time. Years and years and years and years. But the other bits that are new and brand new and just launched are, first of all, this tone arm, which is manufactured in-house in Glasgow. Beautiful parts of stainless steel. Beautiful arm tube, which is made of aluminium alloy 7075. You can go and Google that if you want. There are two different used of parts of aluminium tubes that people use in tone arms. The 7075 is the stiffer one. And so its rigidity is amazing. And then machined in the factory is this one piece head shell, which is then bonded to the aluminium tube. And that head shell milled from a solid block of aluminium, really stiff and light and rigid, so there's no extra vibrations. And then at the point of this is a cartridge, which is 2,800 pounds. That's why I'm being really careful taking that off, because if you break that little bit at the end, you owe me 2,800 pounds. 2,800 pounds! What's it made of? Gold? No, it's made of something more expensive than that. It's made of unobtainium. It's beautiful. So that cartridge is a moving coil. I've previously done a video about the difference between moving coil and moving magnet. Look that up. But the moving coil is the most accurate way of measuring the grooves and the modulations in the grooves of the record. So that the power supply, the sub chassis, the arm and the cartridge move this up to £10,500. And say, oh, how could it be worth that? Well, it's all about the sound. Have a listen between a Majik and a Selekt, and the Selekt sounds far better. If you've got £10,500, I'll get you a Selekt. And if you don't have that, then you can buy a Majik, but maybe you can add the Lingo power supply. Over time, you can add an arm, you can add a cartridge and go from one level to the next. Now, the other thing as we move along here, they are different colours. These plinths, this surrounding plinth part is solid wood, but you have different woods. So that is a stained ash, that's an oak, this is a rose nut, there's also a cherry finish, and there are also now high gloss finishes. You also notice this one has fluted plinth. The original ones, going back to 1973, all had fluted plinths, so they've started to reintroduce this as an option, so that you can have the rosewood just in flat rosewood, or you can have the fluted one. Okay, so this is a Climax level turntable. So why is this one better than that one? Well, we've got the same things again. Platter, the inner platter, top plate and the wooden plinth are all the same. Everything else is different. The sub-chassis part, the part that joins these two together, in this case is milled from a solid block of aluminium right up and including this arm collar all in one piece. Lovely piece of engineering, but that one part is 2,700, something like that. This is the top tone arm called an ECOS SE, again manufactured in Glasgow to the honestly, the finest tolerances, hand-built bearings, hand-assembled like the Arko, but to a level above that again. The arm tube in this case, instead of being made of aluminium, is actually made of, I was about to say plutonium. That would be a good story, but it's not plutonium. It's titanium, a titanium arm tube, which is very expensive and also extremely strong for its weight. So you can have something that is both light and incredibly stiff. Again, milled from solid head shell attached to this, and that's bonded. It's bonded in the way that you put an aircraft wing onto the fuselage these days. People used to have like screws and rivets and nuts and bolts, but now there are metal glues that are stronger than that, and that's the kind of high level technology are being used in this. The cartridge at the end of this is called an Ekstatik. That little bit at the end, that little cartridge is £5,500, and it is just their finest work. The cantilever and the stylus profile is really important to getting the best out of the moving coil system. So on the Selekt, the cantilever, which is a little tube that the stylus sits in, is made of boron, very stiff material. But on the Ekstatik, it's actually made of sapphire. Actually made that little tiny tube out of sapphire. And then the stylus is a particular profile, machined to a profile called micro ridge. So there we are. I don't know if Brendan can zoom in enough to actually see that that's a micro ridge profile, because you need about a microscope to put it under to see it. But if you zoom into a cartridge, you look at it, take a photograph with your phone and zoom into it, it is the most amazing piece of engineering, of precise engineering. So in all of this then, there's another box sitting here, which comes with the Climax level turntable, and this is a box called a Radikal. So what does a Radikal do? Well, it does two things actually. In the way that the Lingo power supply is controlling the motor on the Lingo, the Radikal controls an even higher level motor. The motor goes onto this is enormous, and the motor itself is like over 500 pounds, maybe 700 pounds. It looks the same from the top, but there's a much more expensive motor. The measuring system is the same, but the Radikal very precisely is measuring the speed of the turntable, and it is keeping the amount of background vibration going to the motor much lower. The more precise you can have the feed to the motor, the more you find the motor will have no vibration. The motor is able to move smoothly without putting any more vibration into the rest of the system. So that the less vibration in the system, the more the little fine stylus can get all the information out of the groove. So I said this did two things. That's right, because also this has a feed into it called a thing called a Urika. And that is different from anything that is in the lesser levels. Whenever the output of a cartridge, whether it's moving magnet or moving coil, is very tiny, and it has to go into a phono stage in the amplifier, and the phono stage amplifies it from the tiny level up to what's called line level, the level a CD player or anything else plugs into it, which is 1 volt. In the Urika is a phono stage which is actually placed inside the turntable, and so there's a very short signal path from the end of the arm into this. It is amplified up to 1 volt and then goes out to the amplifier at that level, so you're not sending a very delicate tiny signal over a longer distance. So the power supply of a Radikal will also do the does a power supply for the Urika, not just for the motor, but a dedicated power supply for the phono stage. And the Urika has two variants, one of which I've just described comes out analog. There's also a thing called the Urika 2. The Urika 2 is slightly different in that it goes further and actually has a digital to analog converter in the turntable. Heresy, I hear you cry. Why would you have a digital to analog converter in an analog turntable? Well, Linn's highest level systems have a thing called exact technology, where you can have the level of your source right through to the speaker to digital to analog converters later in the system. But you've got the choice of a Urika 1 or Urika 2. It's not that one's better than another. They are different animals for different systems. There are two versions of the Radikal, however, in different cases. This is the case that is machined from solid, which is the most beautiful and the most expensive case. So how much does all this add up to? Well, I'm frightened to tell you, because we have to pay for these things. I know you think Linn give them to us free, but they don't. This is £23,000 with the standard case, or as it sits here, it is a whopping £25,000. So in front of you here is the guts of £40,000 worth of Linn turntables. I just added that up as I was saying it, and it frightens me. Who paid for this? Well, it's me, I'm afraid. Anyway, you've got £40,000 worth of turntables, and there's a level that's right for you, because the Linn is probably, like Carlsberg, the finest turntable you can buy. And if you want to have the finest level, come and see me, have a listen to the different levels, and we'll get you sorted out. Like everything else we do, it's all about the sound, it's all about the music. And coming in and listening to a Linn means that unfortunately you're pretty likely to buy one. A lot of people that listen to one go, okay, better get myself one of those. So I invite you to do that. Thank you for watching on this glum September rainy afternoon in Belfast. We will be back soon because we've got other things to talk about. I don't know if you can see behind me there are large blue speakers. Those large blue speakers have just arrived. They are the KEF Blade 2 Meta, which I talked about 6 months ago, and they've been so back ordered they've only arrived. We also have a new KEF speaker called the LS60, which has lots of really interesting technologies to talk about as well. So next time we'll do those. Meanwhile, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe. See you soon.